Kevin and KP probably sing in the shower, but you're our pro singer here on the stage. Talk to us about falling in love with actual music.
My vocal lesson teacher used to say to me that everybody can sing. Now, how good you sound, that's what other thing. So, let's see, I think my earliest memory of really falling in love with music, I mean, I grew up in a musical family, so my father was a musician, not very typical, so my home music was something that was very much fostered. And I grew up, my parents, when we settled here in the United States post the genocide, post-Jewish genocide, I was fairly young. I was about a year old when we came to the States. And so I grew up where I would watch my father perform, it was in the basements of our homes, wherever it was, fellow refugees coming and gathering. And I think what I learned in witnessing that was sort of the power of music. When they were there, everyone was karaoke, and everyone's dancing and they're singing, and I think that it just allowed them to be happy and to forget kind of the dark times that they had come from. But also, when I was 6 years old, I remember my father had a musician friend, very talented guy, and he lived in Portland, Oregon, and he would come with his friend who was a truck driver. His friend gave me my very first cassette tape. That's how old I am. So I had my very first cassette tape, and it was the Chiffons. I don't know if anybody knows them, but I just remember singing the songs. It was like, my boyfriend's back and we're gonna be in trouble. Da, 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 da. But I was like 6 years old, and I told my mom I was gonna warn her, I was gonna call her out on stage. She's like, you can't sing about boyfriends, you're 6 years old. But for me, all I just remembered was it was the first actual album that I fell in love with and discovered music. So.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again so much, all of you, for being here with us tonight and sharing your talent. Now, it's incredible, right? We're all still doing what we love, but that's without saying that we probably did experience some challenges, especially as Southeast Asians. So let's chat a little bit about that. Kevin, want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I was younger, I did have a lot of identity issues, just simply because everywhere I turned, all the things that were being presented to me that were cool just didn't look like me. So when I found myself as a backup dancer before I became a choreographer, I remember being pretty envious of everyone just kind of making the step ahead or progressing or getting on that tour. And even when I started choreographing, I was always kind of in the background. The attention was never paid on me. Even though I was doing a lot of the work, nobody really was able to see that. Maybe due to my age, my race, but it attributed to a lot of my insecurities just growing up in general. Cut to me being an adult, I will say that it was such an important thing for me to actually be an observer and a wallflower. It really, truly actually helped me stay sane, stay grounded, because the attention that I craved as a young adult or a teenager really became toxic for the people who were able to get that attention. So I was able to witness so many downfalls, and I am lucky that I didn't get to, I guess, in that moment shine, because I knew that eventually my time would come. But at that time, you just don't think it ever will come. So it did definitely knock me down all the time. It made me question whether or not I should even keep going if I wasn't getting any sort of validation or recognition. But I realized how immature kind of that was as I grew up, and how grateful I am for my very personal experience. But and it's great to be able to look at 2024 and see so many people who look like me on screen and making really cool moves, directing the biggest movies in Hollywood, winning the Oscars and getting recognition. I still think that we have a lot of work to do. But I will say the younger version of me looking at the way the world is now would be completely in love with what I watch. I mean, even BTS, like, I would have never thought an all-Asian male pop group would be that popular, because I didn't see it. And those types of stereotypes definitely worked against me as far as feeling cool. So I'm very grateful for that a lot of younger kids now who are Asian American get to witness that you actually can be the star.
What about Thai Americans though? And this might
Is there specific?
Yeah, what KP and Bochan end up talking about too, but seeing not just other Asians, but like other Thai American filmmakers and actors and actresses.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I was growing up, I wasn't able to meet a lot of Thai people specifically in my industry. It was very rare. And I remember as a young kid always wondering why that was, and I never really got that answer. But it was very rare for me to meet anybody Thai within my industry, and as I've been able to work more now, I am meeting more people behind the scenes, in front of the camera, and it's been one of those experiences that it's hard to verbalize or intellectualize. Like when I went to do Thai Cave Rescue, the feeling that I felt by just simply being there, being on that set and telling a Thai story with all Thai actors, it was nothing short of kind of a spiritual experience, because I did not even know how much I was craving that kind of comfort, but there was something just about existing in that place and looking around and seeing people that are like my family in many ways was incredibly comforting. And I remember there was like an aha moment where I was like, oh, wow, this is what it feels like. This is something that I missed my whole life because I did grow up in Los Angeles. So I never really got to have that really tight sense of community, especially a Thai community. So yeah, it was challenging growing up to meet anybody else that I can reach out to and kind of commiserate with.
KP.
Well, I can say I started acting, I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I started in the 90s, early 90s. Being a first generation Lao refugee coming from and going into the industry and deciding to go to the theater arts major, there wasn't a lot. There was a lot of challenges. They were like looked at upon. The play that I did in high school were not taught me. I was always the third tree or the ensemble. Never had an opportunity. Even when I started going to LA and trying to act, like finding Laotian actors was completely non-existent. Being a Lao actor, but I didn't. The challenge I saw was like, if someone wasn't out there, I wasn't going to wait for somebody. I started writing plays. I knew the other Asian actors, the Hmong actors were coming in to the department, didn't really have opportunity because I knew it. So I started reading. I've never written anything before, so I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And no one's going to say no. So there were a lot of obstacles, of course. In the early 90s, audition was very rare, especially being any Asian actor, just being alone. Going to auditions because you have, there's one part for Asian, like every Asian actor that are currently now, we're all put in one room. And you audition, we literally became family going, hey, I'm going to get this, and we drive across town just to try to get that opportunity. And so, and that's why I really admire the Asian American Theater Company here with the East West Players who create something for us to be part of. I was fortunate to be part of the East West Actors Network back then. But challenges were there, but I took it as a challenge, not an obstacle, but a challenge to a challenge. I'm a very stubborn person. I come from middle class. No, you're not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. And persistent. I know my value, and growing up, I didn't see a lot of like I said, Lao actors. It's like 0.01%. Even the 2% of the Asian industry. But was an opportunity, so I was like, I'm going to keep sticking with it. And of course, you have obstacles with the community, like, why are you wasting your time? You're not going to make it, things like that. But I always knew that I had a goal, and it was the only goal that I had. I wasn't gonna stop, and so I keep persisting. And it's just timing. Everything's timing. I've spent so many years in and out, but I never gave up the dream that I always had as a kid, growing and watching movies, role playing, being somebody, and having my long Laotian name across the screen. I didn't change my name, but everyone in Hollywood said, change your name, you sound too Asian. I said, no, this is who I am. I'm gonna represent who I am. And when we have a conversation, I can tell my story. And
Challenges, ooh, there were a lot. When I grew up singing with my father eventually, I was primarily singing in like the Cambodian American music circuit, and I think in a sense my father was probably living vicariously through me, and so he had all these ideas of how I was going to cross over into the music scene. I always joke around and say that my father is a combination of Selena's dad and Michael Jackson's dad, in that sense. But as a young Cambodian American diaspora, 1.5 generation, I think it was a struggle for me because who I saw myself as an artist or what I wanted to do didn't always align with what he envisioned. And so finally, when I went off on my own and decided to do my solo career in 2009, and during that time, I was just reflecting on this actually like 2 nights ago with how rough it was. It really was. We didn't have social media, and if you were an indie artist, trying to budget your music video, Snap 116, the music video that I shot as an indie artist, and the reason why I was able to do it at the level that, I did was because there were so many supporters and fellow artists that actually we collectively believed in something. And so I think that the challenge for me has always been to try to figure out, well, one, it's always how are you going to finance and what kind of music are you going to make, right? Well, what kind of artist do you want to be? And secondly, for me as a Cambodian American artist, where it's so important to incorporate my culture and my country's history into it, is how do I create a sound that closes the cultural and generational gap while also is relatable to the masses. And that was my attempt with Channel 116, and I also wanted to, because post-genocide, statistically, I think it's like somewhere between 80 and 90% of all the artists in the whole entire country were executed. And so to put that in perspective, you can imagine, 40 plus years of not really much art, music, or anything coming from Cambodia, the motherland, and even here in, the States. But, so I think that was hard for me. It was like, I was either creating music that didn't resonate with folks from my mother's generation, or, I didn't want to do that kind of music. It didn't feel like who I was, To this day I refuse, so I'm just a stubborn too.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take the challenging part of the question and turn that into our superpowers. I will say, growing up as a Lao American, it was really rough. I mean, it was like some of the silliest things, if I think about it, was rough. Like kids making fun of you because you were a different kind of Asian, right? And even when you talk about the food that you ate, like fish sauce, they'd be like, oh gosh, it's so gross. And I used to feel so bad about that part of it. So I wouldn't eat at school or invite people over because I was so ashamed of that. Now, fast forward, and I will spit that in your face. It's so good. You're gonna try it with me. I'm so proud to be, Lao American. Let's talk about all the things that,